Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It's Brother Ali. This is the Travelers Podcast. Thank you for coming back. Maybe you can hear my voice, although I don't hear it that much now, but I am significantly under the weather, as we say in my house, him sick. And I'm like not doing well. Nothing to worry about. I mean, I cared for my daughters and my wife. All the ladies in my family were sick for like 6 weeks, just circulating these colds and flus and strep throat and coughing and fevers and all this stuff, just mocos and just the whole thing for a long time now. And it's not unique to us. A lot of the people that I know around the world, especially with kids, are really like, man, people are sick. It's really a trip. And so now they seem to be doing better. The kids that go to school are back in school. And now it seems to be my turn. So I say all that to say that you are not going to have to listen to me sound like this. There's a lot of coughing and obnoxious throat clearing that you're just not going to have to deal with. What we're going to do is, a few weeks ago, I recorded an Ask Me Anything episode, which we do every month for the Caravan subscribers, where they get to ask me anything. Come on, brother Adi, everybody knows what that is. But basically, I get to be the guest on the podcast, and y'all get to be the interviewers. And I don't remember everything we talked about, but I do know that somebody was on my head for not talking about Iran enough, or not talking about Iran. And I remember responding to that in something of a spirited way, probably. But in any case, that's what we're gonna go with this week. And inshallah, next week we'll be back on our regular scheduled program. I just want to give a couple updates, though. Firstly, this has been a really celebratory time for us. We don't have holidays. We're Muslim and we live in a Muslim country, so there's no holidays for us here at this time of the year. But we do have holidays. They're just not during this time. We have Ramadan coming up in less than 100 days. And then it will be, even before that, we have certain days like the middle of the month of Sha'ban and other things like that. So we have holidays, but not in this time. But I just want to say, everybody that had holidays and are celebrating holidays, I hope that they're good for you. It's okay for them not to be. Holidays can be really joyous and it can also be really challenging. And sometimes there's a lot of both. You don't have to feel bad for just having a human experience during the holidays. Check out betterhelp.com/travelers. They're sponsors of these episodes, and it's an online therapy platform where if you use that code, betterhelp.com/travelers, you get a discount. We get actually a commission for our partnership with them for making that connection. But there's nothing wrong with having a human experience during the holidays. It's really super normal, and it's worth talking to somebody about. But I just want to say, I pray your holidays are good, and I hope that the new year is good. It is the new year for us as well. We do both the Islamic calendar and the Gregorian Western calendar. So for us, it also will be coming up on 2023. And one of the main things that we've been talking about, or that I've been talking about on the podcast and really asking for good thoughts and for prayers for, is that my family has been in the application process for another year of residency here in Turkey. And we just got the news that we will be approved for another year. So thank you for your well wishes. Thank you for your prayers. We're really happy. We love this place very much. And, I can't foresee wanting to leave here. We ask Allah to give us long lives and make our lives to be really good, long, good lives of doing good and becoming sound and becoming, people of integrity, that we walk what we talk, and that we become transformed by what we believe and become complete and become whole and become patient and merciful and wise and strong and compassionate and ferocious when it's time to be, and all these other things. But that being said, we never know when our time is. And if my time were to come, I would be very happy to be buried here in Turkey with these beautiful people. I would be very happy with that. Not to take a morbid turn on you. Like, man, this has sounded like Mark Maron, man. Why is this guy talking about death all of a sudden? I promise you, sickness has nothing to do with it. It's part of the spiritual practice. There are graveyards everywhere in this city. Everywhere you go, there's public graveyards all over the place. And I'm really grateful for that. It's really beautiful for death to just be part of the part of your daily routine. It should be, because that's part of what one of the things that's the ultimate assignment of what we're here to do is to leave this realm. It's the final exam, you know? So in any case, we've been given another year of residency, and we're very, very grateful for that. So thank you for all of those that sent your well wishes, but in comments and DMs and emails and prayers and all of that. I really appreciate it very much. I put out 2 new installments of Brother Minister. Brother Minister is something I started doing like 5 or so years ago because I wanted it to basically I have made a beat. It's like a 1-hour practice. Make a beat from a sample that is just sitting there waiting to get worked on, chopped, flipped, looped, whatever it is. I kind of always I make beats more so because it's a beautiful creative outlet for me. It's a stress-free, it's pure joy. I have no expectations. I just get to do it and I love doing it. And I have a lot of beats. Um, Sitting around, and some of them are pretty good. But what I do is I don't use those for whatever reason. I don't know why, but like I have samples sitting around just waiting, ready to go. Like I go along, listen to my records, or even I do some digital stuff. I might be on YouTube or something, and just hear something. I'm like, oh, this needs to get rapped on. So I just keep them, and then when I'm ready to, or when I just feel like I need a break or have a quick little outlet, have a session, I'll bring that up, flip it, and then I do it. I do the rhyming like a freestyle type of approach. So I think of 4 bars at a time, and I just spit that. I have the mic right there. Think of it, say it right as I think of it. Think of a few more and say those. Just very stream of consciousness kind of thing. So that's why I call it a freestyle, because I don't think of it in advance. There's no structure. I don't sit down and knock them out in one take usually, although there's 1 or 2 that I did knock out in one take. And I started making them 1 minute long. That's why I call it Brother Minister. Because when I started doing it, Instagram would let you post 1 minute of video in your feed. And they didn't have reels back then. So I would do 1 minute. I'd make basically like a 1 minute song, mix it myself, master it, just do everything. And then slap some sort of visual on it and post it. And I had so much fun doing it, and people really responded. Amir Suleiman, who's my dear friend, always says that he thinks those are my best work. Like when I go like that, which means a lot to me because of the tremendous weight that he holds in my life and in my heart, and him as an artist. So anyway, I've been doing these for years. Last year, I pressed up a collection of them called Brother Minister Volume 1. I just got like 12 or 15 of them, and I pressed them up and made a record, pressed them up on vinyl. I think I did 300, and they sold immediately. So much so that like people were upset that they didn't hear about it until it was already gone. I'm sitting here looking at one of them right now. They're hand numbered, really dope. But I told people that I wouldn't make more than that 300, and I'm just not going to do it. There's so many like comment section A&R music executives that know exactly what what we should do with our career. They're always like, what would be amazing is you should do a song with this person and this person doing the hook, press up 300 of them. The A side could be this, the B side is that. And it's always just like, man, okay. I mean, all right. But anyway, so we put those out a year ago, sold through the vinyl immediately, but I made it available on streaming services, and we got 1 million streams on Spotify alone. I don't know if I can check the numbers for everything else, but Spotify alone, 1 million streams for a collection of 1 minute freestyles that I made for social media, which is really dope. And so we pressed them up on cassette. If you go to brotherali.com, those are on cassette. But I made 2 new ones. One about getting residency, and one of them I just kind of named Bean Pie, just because in this stream of consciousness, I just mentioned Bean Pie at the end. And then I edited together visuals for them too, so they have videos. You can go on my social media, or you can go on our YouTube page, and you can see the edited videos that I made for those. Laying around the house being sick, it's like, man, I got to do something. I got to be creative somehow. And so that's what we did. So there's 2 new Brother Ministers. The last week episode of R.A. the Rugged Man, people really loved that episode. We did one with my brother Jasiri X the week before that. That's a beautiful episode. People front sometimes if they don't recognize the guest name right away. But man, I'm telling you, these conversations, there's a lot to get from them. We also had Immortal Technique not that long ago. And so feel free to go back through the podcast. As everybody that we've spoken to has really had a lot to share with us. So the episodes are up and cracking. Another thing that I wanted to mention, and don't tell anybody about this, but we also pressed up a few months back, we pressed up a maxi single with Going Through It, More Than This, and The Old Way. Going Through It is produced by me and Ant. More Than This is produced by Evidence. The Old Way is produced by me. And we did 500 of those. Again, they sold really quickly. But I was on tour at that time, and so I grabbed a few of them and put them in our vehicle just to be on the table, on the merch table. So, like, even if these sell out, if somebody comes out to a show, they might not have been able to get one online because it's sold out, but they could see, like, oh man, they got them, and they could buy one. Well, my man BK1 was unpacking the merchandise, and he was like, "Yo, there's a few of these maxi singles left." Like, I don't know if they didn't get put out or if they just didn't sell, or I don't know what happened, but we got a few of them left. So if you go to brotherali.com, there's a very, very small number left of these maxi singles that henceforth to forth hither we thought were sold out. There's a couple of them up there. And we just left the price at $30, I think. So you could grab those. While they last, those Brother Minister cassettes are there. Did I say that? We got to 1 million, so we pressed Brother Minister on cassette. And those are on brotherali.com. They're really dope. It's really fresh to like have that memory, and like I love cassettes so much. I did all my work on cassettes, early work. So did Atmosphere, Rhymes Here. Like our early stuff is all even recorded on cassette recorders, 4-track recorders. So being able to order cassettes, like actually going through and looking at, the colors and the different types of print and all that kind of stuff, thinking of imagining like, man, someone's going to hold this tape in their hand the way that I used to hold tapes. It's really dope. So those are on brotherali.com. And then also we have our songwriting workshop coming up in January. And the first cohort of that sold out. So there's a second one open, and there are still a very small number of those slots left. So you can get on that. And that's also at brotherali.com. This is a month-long, really interactive, deep dive that I do with 2 cohorts, small cohorts of writers, and we really explore the process of writing hip-hop songs together. Everything from the mechanics of how it's done all the way up through the, different flows and cadences, and telling our stories and speaking truth to power and exploring and expressing our own selves and connecting with other people. I created this system, me and Slug actually created it together, of annotating hip hop lyrics, where you can write your lyrics musically like sheet music on paper, so that when you go back, you know exactly how these words are supposed to land on the beat. You can remember the cadence, remember the flow. It's really dope. And so when you sign up for this online course, it's called Blood on Beats: How to Die Writing a Song, meaning the way that the ego dies. It's actually a spiritual practice and of creating. And so you also get these really dope notebooks that we produced with the annotation style and just some notes about writing songs. And man, we talk about how to overcome writer's block, all of this stuff. It's a really dope thing. There are a few of those slots are still open, so make sure to go and check that out as well. I'm going to leave you to it and just let you know that I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful to you. We're brought to you, as always, every week by the Zakat Foundation, Zakat. Zakat US is their online, like, social media stuff, so you can go and check them out. Also, go to their website, zakatfoundation.org. They're doing a really dope series right now, just talking about what it means to give. My man Preacher Moss is going around talking to people. So he talks to Muhammad Ali's daughter and a number of other really amazing people about just what it does for society, what it does for us when we're able to give to others. So, man, if you're feeling down, or if you're feeling amazing, or if you're feeling like me, some combination of the two, go and put some money on somebody else's situation. Go and find somebody that the little $5 that we buy coffee with or whatever, that $5 can really change somebody's life in the moment that you give it. So these are people that I know and that I trust, and I've worked with them. So it's a really good way to do it. The other one is betterhelp.com/travelers, BETTERHELP.com/travelers. BetterHelp is an online therapy platform, and they've just got thousands of registered, trained, licensed therapists that are ready to work with people on their own terms. I live outside of America and I'm self-employed, so it's hard for me to access therapy, but I need it like everybody else. I think everybody should have some type of therapy practice and relationship. I don't think any of us should be like, no, I just completely got this and I don't need anybody to tell me anything. And no, I mean, tell somebody that what you think you know about yourself, and let them just say it back to you, and then see if you don't come up with if see if you don't find something in there that you didn't know was there. I think it's a really common thing, and then of course, people are dealing with depression, people are dealing with anxiety, people are dealing with addictions and all sorts of stuff. If like most of us, you find yourself doing things that you don't believe in and don't believe are good for you, um, but can't seem to find the discipline to control them, well, then that's in the family of addiction. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean anything's wrong with you or me or us, but it does mean that we could use help talking through stuff with people who that's what they do for a living. So go to betterhelp.com/travelers. When you do that, we get a commission. So they help us do the stuff that we do here. But then also you get a 10% discount. You can start talking with your therapist within, I think it's 24 hours. Like fill out a questionnaire survey thing that tells why you want to be in therapy. And then you talk about what kind of therapist you want. Then you choose your therapist and you make your own schedule with them. And then you start texting with them if you want to, or you just wait till your session and then you either get on the phone or you talk to each other face to face, like online, or you can just stay texting for a while if you want. If you ever want to switch your therapist, you just switch it, no added cost, no questions asked, no hard feelings. Do that and find the person that works well for you. I'm not saying therapy is everything, but I do think that it's a really important practice in our times, in the times that we live in. If you live in West Africa on a compound with your whole extended family and your tribe and people that knew your grandparents, and you know what I'm saying, like you got this really beautiful, lush, rich network of elders and friends and peers and community members and religious teachers and spiritual masters. If you got that, then okay, word, God bless you. But if you're like the rest of us, where you're isolated and you got all kind of stuff going on inside, and there's not really a good way set up to deal with that, therapy can be a good option. And if it's hard for you to just walk into, for whatever reason, to just walk into a clinic and do that in person, BetterHelp is a good option. So betterhelp.com/travelers. We get a commission, you get a discount. Love is love. Everything is good. And hopefully we all are on the path of healing. I'm going to let you jump into this episode that I can no longer remember, except for the fact that I think somebody stopped messing with me because they didn't like that I wasn't talking about Iran. So have a response. I guess that person is probably not listening to this episode, but it's a good opportunity to share. And I do welcome y'all to ask me questions and challenge me on things whenever you feel that it's important to do so. It's how we benefit from being in community. We benefit a lot from the critiques of others. And so it's a good way to be. Shout out to BK1 and for always producing these episodes. He does a lot. He does a lot to make sure that this actually happens, because he's just dealing with two artists. He's dealing with me and another artist trying to get our schedules together and then recording us, and who knows what our recording setup is going to be. My internet is always a problem in Istanbul, and BK just makes it work no matter what. So much love to BK1 and to his entire family. And much love to your family. Enjoy this episode of Travelers Podcast. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. What up, Caravan people? This is Brother Ali. And this is the Ask Me Anything episode. We do these once a month, and or at least that's our aim, to do them once a month. I don't know if everybody is. It seems like the people in the upper tier of the caravan are the trailblazers are actually submitting most of the questions every month. And so folks that are in that kind of middle tier, I want to make sure that you know that like you're able to submit these questions. And it is a private thing that we do for subscribers. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you very much for your support. You have to know, like, we're genuinely and truly 100% independent. Like, we do not see one penny from anything other than the people that support us, and even the one corporate sponsor that we do have, that's a commission. You know what I mean? So, like, the BetterHelp is the one corporate sponsor that I've never had a corporate sponsor. I've been part of events that are sponsored by corporations. So at that point, it's like a choice for me to have to make. Like, am I going to do this festival that's sponsored by whatever, Monster Energy or Red Bull or, Miller or whatever? Like, I either do the festival or I don't do it. And festivals are usually the thing. I did one, the tour that I did with Rakim and Ghostface Killer was sponsored by Dodge. They had like like the Charger, the new Charger came out in 2008. They were trying to like push to the urban crowd. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we made this for people in the hood and we want to sell it to them. You know what I mean? That was their version of the Chrysler C300. That Cat Williams said, it looked like a Bentley until a Bentley pulls up. Amazing. But anyway, so there's been a few events that, like, if you want to do this event, it's sponsored by whoever, and either you do it or don't do it. And so then I have a decision to make. And a lot of times I do make that decision. And there have been times that I've done shows that have been at casinos. It's been pretty rare, but again, this event is happening at a casino or it's not going to happen. Red Lake is a First Nation, like an Indian reservation in Minnesota. And I have been asked by the community there a lot, like, man, we really wish you'd come rock at Red Lake. So I'm like, yo, I'll do the show for free, but do you have a venue? You know what I mean? Do you have a venue that can actually, where we can do a hip hop show? And we really tried hard to figure it out, and we just weren't able to get it together. And then actually some organizers that were asking us to come, some of them had connections or maybe even worked at the casino. And they're like, yo, the casino will actually pay you a lot. And so, you know, that was that ended up being the best option. I'm not a person that, drinks. As a Muslim, like, I don't drink alcohol. And there's been times where I've been invited by breweries, but that's the place where concerts happen. So I have those decisions, and I talk to my teachers about it. I talk to certain people I consult with about it, and they're like, "Yo, if that's the place where music happens, just like even being in a bar like that, I don't love the fact that I have to perform in bars and nightclubs. Like, the fact that in America, popular music is associated with drinking, sex, drugs, rock and roll, all that kind of stuff. I resent that. I don't like that fact. But that's where music happens. And my music is like, unless I want to change and just perform for, religious people, which I don't. Like, my music is like, I am created by, and I've been formed by such a variety of communities from different walks of life. And so I perform where that music happens and where those people go. I need to be where those people are, at least at this phase of my career. So, saying all that to say that we're independent, and with very few exceptions. And the times that we make those decisions, so like BetterHelp was the example that I was talking about. We don't see a dime from them unless somebody actually goes and uses our link to sign up. And then in that case, we get a commission. It's like, a sales kind of thing. So I'd say all that to say that every little thing that our listeners do to support what we're doing helps us, and it keeps us going. It keeps the lights on. It keeps us, being able to do this stuff. So the fact that you subscribe really means a lot. And these are just for you. So we have an Ask Me Anything thing, and there's a number of questions that came in. And I'm going to throw in a couple of things that a couple of just like frequently asked questions. or like things that have been said to me, or opinions that have been voiced to me about myself and my platform recently. And maybe I'll take those excerpts and post them just so that those things can be known. But I don't know. We'll see. And heads up, I mean, I'll save them for the end, but they're kind of contentious. Like there are people coming at me on my social media platforms, or on social media in general. It's people coming at me about stuff, and so there are gonna be responses to people coming at me, which is not normally what I do. Um, so I'll start with the questions that were asked in the caravan. The first one is, in your opinion, what was the best performance or show or experience that you've had, and what was your worst? And I'm assuming that my man is talking about performances. There's a number of like shows that stand out as just really great ones, and I'm really grateful for them. Um, there was a night in particular night that I remember for just such a variety of reasons. But in 2008, I was on the tour that I just mentioned, actually, with Rakim and Ghostface Killer, and we were backed up by this big band. It was like a 20-person band, enormous. Like some people have a band, even the Roots is like 5 people. You know what I'm saying? Drummer, guitar, bass, keys. Um, and then the Roots have different people that are worked into that. So there may be, two keyboards, or there might be a tuba or something like that. This was like a full-on band. There was like a 4 or 5 piece horn section, big horn section. Um, Several percussionists, like people, playing kungas and, different types of percussion. They had different people with a mic that could sing or that could talk on the mic, and a drummer, and they just had like a full band, and it was a big sound. And so they were doing all of the backing for me and for Ghostface Killer and for Rakim in reverse order. They were doing it for Rakim, they were doing it for Ghostface Killer, and they were doing it for me. So I mean, you think about Rakim when they're doing I Ain't No Joke, which is one of my favorite Rakim songs. But you got that song is made up of a break beat. There's like a break beat that comes in and out, but it's also a drum machine. So you think about the way that that song was constructed, and that's like 1987 or so, 86, 87. So that's a drum machine, an 808 drum machine, along with a break beat. And then, so they had somebody playing drum pads, and those drum pads were the 808 drum sounds. Boom, 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 boom. And then they had the live drummer was playing the drum break that they used along with it. Boom. He's playing the live drum break. Then you had also Eric B. I'm assuming it was Eric B. scratching in a sample from a James Brown record with a big horn section in it, the JBs. And so during that part, the bass player is playing from the record that was being scratched in. And the horn section is playing. So you got this big band, and then Rakim is standing there saying, I ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. Now I slam it when I'm done, make sure it's broke. When I'm gone, no one gets on, because I won't let nobody press up and mess up the scene I set. I used to stand in the crowd, watch the people wonder, damn, think about it, then you understand. I'm just an addict, addicted to music, maybe it's a habit. I gotta use it. Even if it's jazz or the quiet storm, I hook a beat up, convert it into hip hop form, write a rhyme and graffiti in. Every show you see me in, deep concentration, cause I'm no comedian. Jokers are wild if you wanna be tame. Treat you like a child and you're gonna be named another enemy, not even a friend of me, cause you get fried in the end when you pretend to be competing, cause I just put your mind on. So like, I part of why I went into that, I'll tell you in a second. But so when Rakim is doing that song, it's a full band recreating the track. When Ghostface, for example, is doing, the time when he just sampled, who is that song? Is it the Dramatics? Ah, na, 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 if I want, I love you. You know what I'm saying? Uh, on the Pretty Tony album, when he just rhymes over I think it's the Dramatics. Brendan's gonna kill me. He knows exactly what it is. But I think that's a Dramatics joint. So he's just, Ghost is just singing over the record. But during that time, they're recreating that record, and they got a dude in the band that can sing that. Many guys on side and pass you by. And then the rest of the band got mics. Pass you by. Dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Ghost is rapping over it. It's amazing. And then it comes to my part, and I'm doing Room with a View. And it's the full on band going. And whenever I say, they're playing that beginning part, boom, doo, 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 the sample, but they're playing it live. And then when I say one side of the street, the band just knows. Da, da, da. I'm talking about a 5-person horn section. It's not one or two horns. Like, this is a big horn section. Man, it was so dope. So just being on that tour in general. And then for me, that was the first time that I really got to feel, and one of the only times that I got to feel like what it felt like to be a rapper. You know what I'm saying? What I envisioned a rapper would be like. So you think about, like, I start out doing these little gigs and these little coffee houses and community events. I'm doing Juneteenth and, Rondo days and little coffee shops, Bon Appetit, stuff like that in the Twin Cities in the 90s and early 2000s. Then I get to go on tour with Atmosphere, and those are 60 shows, but it's in little clubs all over the country. Then I go on tour with Merce. Then I go on tour again with Atmosphere. Then I go on tour with Brand Nubian, but that's me opening for them. And we had even toured with Rakim once, but that's us. That's Rakim on a tour bus and me and BK1 in a van following them. You know what I'm saying? In a minivan. I'm selling my own merch. We're making $500 a night and we're spending $350 just being on the tour. You know what I'm saying? And so we're splitting $150. So it's not glamorous. Most of the stuff that I've done in my career hasn't been glamorous. After this, then I started doing festivals and, then there's been at times when things are very glamorous. I've definitely had very glamorous experiences. And they just happen every now and then. And it's like, I never know, you know what I'm saying? But there's like literally one night I could be performing for 100 people. And when all the expenses are done, I'm going to make $200. And the next day I could be on stage at a big festival and I'm making $20,000. Like one day, the next day, you know what I'm saying? My career is all over the place. It always has been. I hope it's always will be. There's a very good chance that I might be in a place one day where it's just the little things. And I'll go back to that. And I'm happy with that. I know that about myself. In any case, so I'm on tour with Rakim and Ghostface Killer. It's sponsored by Dodge, you know what I'm saying? And they're throwing a lot of money into it. And, and there's tickets being sold. So I think I'm maybe making $2,000 a night, something like that. And, plus merch. But I didn't have to cover any expenses at all. So I was on Rakim's bus. That's the other part. It's like I'm on the tour bus because it's just one bunk. And I think my man Big Mike, actually, yeah, I know my man Big Mike from Chicago. Shout out to Big Mike from Chicago / Waukegan, Illinois, was on that tour with me. He was security / merch. And I mean, so I'm paying him a daily salary. It's a daily cut. He's happy with it. He gets to come on the road and he's on Rakim's bus too. You know what I'm saying? I think at that time he was we went and, I was really in a service role. So like the first day of the tour, we went to Walmart and, and I bought new pillows for everybody. And I bought blankets and fresh sheets, especially for Rakim's room in the back. And his wife was on that run. And so like, I bought them all kind of stuff to make that room nice. You know what I mean? Just as a gift and just as a way of saying like, thank you. You're the greatest rapper there's ever been. I'm the new guy. I appreciate you letting me roll on your bus, and all kind of experiences like that. Got to hang out with Rakim a lot. I got that's when I really got my like mentorship from Rakim, was primarily on that tour. Went to the house and got to be with his family and, talked about the theological differences between the Sunni Muslims and the Nation of Gods and Earth, the 5 percenters, really dope, man. Really, I just, amazing. But then also I'm being paid $2,000 a day, which is more than I've made before. You know what I'm saying? But it's just cash being handed to me. It's not the most I've ever made. Even at that time, like I probably made, there's times where I probably made more than that. And you make that when you're on tour, you got to spread it out over the whole year. It's whatever. But I'm saying on this particular tour, I'm doing my shows. We're at these big venues. I got this big band behind me. I'm also hosting the shows. I'm playing for a traditional hip hop audience, which I don't always get to do. This is the audience that I envisioned performing for. These are the people that I envisioned being on tour with. This is the situation. And also, like, I'm a musical person. So, like, me being with a band, I'm able to do more with that band than most rappers are able to do because of the fact that, like, I come from studying, like, I know all the records that we sampled to make these hip hop beats, and I know the catalogs of those artists. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I grew up also studying that music. And so there's just a certain level of performance and, like, you know, that I'm able to do in those environments and in those situations. And so I just have, like, the traditional hip hop audience is like, yo. So I'm just getting all kind of love and acceptance and adulation and adoration. Adulation? Adoration and making words up. But that's how, I just think about that time and, like, we're playing these big, nice venues. We're rocking the House of Blues, upscale kind of situations. And then one of the dope things about it is that Rakim at that time was going clothes shopping almost every day, but for the show that night, and the whole bus would go. So, like, every day I'm going clothes shopping with Rakim, and a lot of times him and his crew started, like, dressing me. So, like, the ways that I looked on that tour, the way that I was dressing, and this is 2007, you know what I mean? So, like, there was, like, I was dressing the way that those guys dress, which was fun for me. Like, I'm not used to that. But I'm on stage with those dudes, and so I remember one day in particular, Big Moo, who's the tour or he was the security guy for Rakim. He's a well-known brother, but he also he at that time he owned a clothing store, like a urban wear store. So he brought me an outfit, and I'll never forget it, man. I wore it on stage at the Nokia Theater, which was a brand new theater at that time in New York. Um, Rakim, Ghostface, and a lot of the big, like, hip hop media was there. And a lot of them, and I had just put out Undisputed Truth just maybe 6 months earlier. So this is, like, really me in my moment when people started to, like, know who I am. This is not that far removed from also my first times playing on TV and things like that. So at the Nokia Theater, Big Moo showed up with a gift wrapped box for me that was a white Sean John sweatsuit. The jacket, the pants. He had a brand new fresh white tee. He had a brand new fresh red tee, so I could go either way. He had a brand new '07, like, authentic, like, the actual '07 Air Force Ones, brand new, fresh out the box. He had the white laces, and he also gave me a pair of red laces. So he's like, you could go with keep the red and white thing. And I think he had a red and white Yankee fitted. And I don't think I wore the fitted, but I wore the rest of the outfit. And, man, I put that thing on, and just both crews. So, like, you're traveling not only with Ghostface Killer, but it's like the whole Theodore unit. So it's like a bus full of people. It's like 20 people that's rolling with him. And then Rakim got not as many, but I'm saying there's probably 10 to 15 people rolling with Rakim, and then the whole band. And so, like, I'm coming out of the dressing room at this, like, beautiful theater, and, Elliot Wilson is there, and Funkmaster Flex is there, and Miss Info is there, and um, Angie Martinez is there. And, you know what I'm saying? It's like a lot of these big, like, hip hop media people are all like, yo, brother Ali, yo, how you, yeah, good to finally meet you, and all this stuff, really dope. It's just a dope experience. Um, and so I'm coming out the thing, and everybody's like, yo, you look amazing. And then also the next day on the blogs, I want to say it was the brother from maybe Now Right. It was like one of those big blogs. I want to say it was a brother from Now Right wrote, Brother Ali, the sleeper unexpected set of the night was Brother Ali coming through in the clean ass Sean John suit, and stealing the show, you know. So that was dope. But that's not the night I'm talking about. The night I'm talking about is in Minneapolis at First Avenue. My wife at that time was pregnant with our oldest daughter, but my son was 7 years old, and he had actually been. Anybody that saw us in 2007. Me and BK1 did a mixtape called Off the Record, and my son, who was 7 years old at that time, actually did a like spit a rhyme on that thing, and he used to come out on certain shows on that tour. Um, and he would do that, but he would also do Rakim Paid in Full. It was like one of the songs. There's certain songs that all of my kids can spit from memory, and Paid in Full is one of them. My Philosophy by KRS is another one. All of my kids have known Mama Said Knock You Out at some point by LL. There's just certain joints that like you're gonna know this song if you're in our family. Like me and my wife just agree too much on certain joints that like everybody in our family is gonna know them. So my son could spit Paid in Full off the top of the head. So this particular night, Rakim came through. We're in my city. I got to feed everybody. My wife is there and she's pregnant and like everybody's meeting my wife and my son is there. My son spit Paid in Full for Rakim backstage at First Avenue. First Ave is just it's a club that means a lot to us. Growing up in, I didn't grow up in, moved to Minneapolis as a teenager, but that's the place where music happens, where like iconic music moments happen. First time I saw Slug and Idea, first time I saw Public Enemy, first time I saw so many of these amazing moments. Um, and then I got to open for Atmosphere, you know, when their first time selling out First Avenue. And then my first show selling out First Ave. That was with me and Immortal Technique, the first time we did it. And then came through on my tour, and I think we did more than one night in a row. Maybe we did 2, 3 nights in a row, sold out. Really dope, really just very meaningful, you know. So this particular night, we're at First Ave, we're doing our thing, and Rakim says to me, uh, which song do you want to do? He's like, is it Paid in Full? He's like, I want you to actually perform one of my joints tonight. You pick. And for me, it was going to be, I always loved The Ghetto, you know, the Rakim song. I always loved uh, um, Microphone Fiend. That's one of my favorite Rakim songs. And they did that one with the band. But I was like, you know what? I know that one of my favorites is also Ant's favorite. And that's I Ain't No Joke. And Ant was there that night, I think. So I'm like, let me have, but Ant also came out for part of that tour. And he got to meet Rakim and he got to see all the stuff we're doing. He came out for part of the East Coast leg, which was rare, and that meant so much to me. That really was a very special time. Had a lot of really special times. That's one of the most special times of my career in life. And as predicted, I'm getting a little emotional thinking about it, especially the fact that Ant came out for that, you know. And he actually brought me a couple CDs of beats that those were the CDs of beats that ended up becoming most of what you hear on the Us album, including The Travelers, which is the theme song for this. So anyway, First Ave, we're there, and you know, my son is there, our fam is there, my wife is there, she's pregnant. She's a big Ghostface fan, big Rakim fan, so everybody's meeting and all this stuff. Rakim brings me out and is like, yo, he gives me this amazing speech. Rakim was such a big champion for me. Like there are people that in that time, especially if you were following the hip hop blogs, if you were one of these like independent artists that was coming up, it was a big deal to get a cosign. And most of the time it would just be like shot with those little flip cameras. You know, 2007, 8, you'd see somebody, whoever, Joel Ortiz, Asher Roth. I don't say whoever, like, but I'm saying those independent people that were coming up at that time, that you were just starting to, their names were starting to really buzz. You would see them. Charles Hamilton was big at that time. These artists that were just coming out, you know, bursting forward independently, they would get a cosign. So you just see Asher Roth standing next to Beanie Siegel, and Beanie Siegel would be like, yo, homie's the truth. And that video would get posted and it would be a thing. Asher Roth got big upped, got a cosign from this person. Rakim was on like a campaign for me though. And Rakim, I'm not aware, I don't know who else he really co-signed. But it was a big deal. Rakim was like, this dude is somebody. And just multiple times, him talking about me and bringing me out and bigging me up and all this stuff. Big Daddy Kane also bigged me up in that time. A lot of people big me up in that time. But the Rakim one was ongoing. It was like my first year or so, around the time that Undisputed Truth dropped, Rakim was really going to bat for me, and it really means a lot. Chuck D is the same. Chuck D has been, actually, I mean, that one's been 15 years now. But anyway, I don't mean these as humble brags, although that my ego does love saying that these heroes of mine have really bigged me up and gone to bat for me. So anyway, Rakim gave a little speech about me, brought me out on stage, and he was like, "Brother Ali is gonna do pay. I ain't no joke tonight." And Rakim did the backups for me, so I stood there and performed the song. But then also, it means a lot to me that like my mentors in Rhymesayers, especially my man Sadiq from Rhymesayers, who's the president of the label. You know, he's the one that said Brother Ali's going to be on Rhymesayers. I basically had to go behind him and ask Slug and those guys, "Are you cool with this?" Because Sadiq was the main one that really pushed for me to be on the label. And I know that Sadiq, this is my projection, my observation, but Sadiq is a mixed brother, like so are Slug and Ant. And a lot of and Spawn, who was there in the beginning, and Gene Pool, who was there in the beginning. You know, in the guys that were born in the 70s, in Minneapolis, there was a larger than average community of like mixed race families in the 70s in Minneapolis specifically. And so there was a lot of mixed race brothers and like people that were growing up in that time, and it was a strange space to occupy. And so they had their own very unique way of navigating that. And so that was the case for Sadiq. And so they have their own relationships with blackness, with the black community, with black culture. It's very unique and specific for them. I can't speak on them on that, but I know that that's something that they've had to navigate. And Sadiq, like there were people there that night. So when Sadiq first started doing Rhymesayers, he was looking at this really diverse group of artists. So it was Musab, Beyond, um, you know, I Self Divine, the Micronauts, Los Nativos. It was a very, but then he also had Idea and Abilities and Atmosphere. And Atmosphere aren't white, but people think they're white and they're seen as white. And they never made a campaign like, "Hey, we're black, white, and native," but if y'all see us as white, fine, whatever. We're just gonna make our music and do our thing. So, but I know that with this really diverse roster of artists, the ones that got the most public support were the ones that were perceived to be white. Slug and Idea and DJ Abilities, Atmosphere, me, like that was, and so there was this kind of feeling among people in the hip hop scene that were like, "Oh, that's a white boy thing," and I think that that was triggering for the mixed guys in the crew. And I know like there were people that were hesitant and reluctant to give it up to Rhymesayers, although I've got my own relationship with that stuff. So like when I was in those rooms or when I was in those spaces, I was a North Side guy, which was almost entirely black. And so other people in the scene, particularly, man, I always have to shout out Mujah Messiah because Mujah Messiah is from a legendary crew called Raw Villa that was a North Side group, very black. They were 5%ers and very pro-black North Side crew. Mujah always bigged me up. Even when I wasn't there, I would hear stories about somebody attacking me and Mujah defending me. Um, and so when I was in those spaces, and it was like this when I was in really radical pro-black spaces, it's just been, I have my own relationship with this community, and they have their own relationship with me. When I'm there by myself, it's like, oh, Brother Ali is accepted. But when I'm there with Rhymesayers, it was a different thing. So I'd say that to say there was this weird kind of thing around Rhymesayers, but there were certain people there that night, like the hardcore hip hop traditionalists could not miss that show. And they saw me kill it. And they saw Ghostface and Rakim big me up. And those people had to look at me in a different way. And Sadiq from Rhymesayers, who I see as a big brother, and there was a long time when I saw him as a father figure. It's only been very recently, to be honest, that dynamic has started to shift for me, and part of it has been my own journey in therapy. Like part of it was like he wasn't signing up to be a father to me, but that's the way I saw him, and his approval, acceptance, meant a lot to me. And that particular night, I saw that what I was doing was making him happy and was making him feel proud of me and validated. And I could just see in him that experience was making his work feel worth it to him. And it just means a lot to me because I saw that man, he has sacrificed so much. People don't understand how much that man, Sadiq, has sacrificed. He's a mysterious guy. He's a private person. He doesn't speak publicly. A lot of times I wish he would. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the moves and decisions that Rhymesayers made as a label or statements they made about things, he's the one making those decisions a lot of the time. And the fact that he doesn't speak publicly, means that a lot of times those decisions get kind of people think that it's Slug making all that. People think Slug is running the label, and he's not. And some people think that I'm running the label, and I never was. Like Sadiq is he made that decision to step out of the spotlight. And it's not that he's not charismatic and talented and creative and attractive and all that stuff. He's a gorgeous, you know what I'm saying, very charismatic person. He made the choice to step out of the spotlight and to work behind the scenes to make a platform for the artists. And he also built a business opportunity for him to run. And so that label is his thing. But way before there was a big Soundset festival, way before there was, these big shows and accolades and all this stuff, Sadiq poured in hours and hours and hours and years and years and years of sleepless nights and work that just is not sexy. It's not cool. Nobody praises you for it. He just poured years of his life into that thing. And the fact that he opened the door for me, especially when I got all these other issues, this is the stuff that I'm learning in therapy, like after years of loving him and butting heads with him and projecting stuff onto him and being in these weird dynamics with him. It's like, man, after years of that, now I'm starting to unpack all this stuff for myself, like how much his validation meant to me, you know, and that's an unfair thing for him to have in a relationship. But anyway, not any, I mean, that's one of the points. So in any case, we were in this night and I just looked at this dude and he actually said the words to me, "I'm so proud of you." And that really meant a lot to me. And then even the next day, he texted me, "Yo, again, man, really proud of you." Like I feel like that show made not only me feel validated and made me feel validated in a way that I wanted to be, but also made him feel validated. So I've had a lot of amazing days. I've had a lot of amazing shows, but I'm going to just choose that one. He also asked, what's my worst? What's the worst? The worst is being on stage and my voice isn't working and I'm not healthy. And there's just this weird thing that happens in those moments where the audience, like there's times where it's like, this is medically damaging me. Like this, not like, yeah, I just got a rough voice and like there's times where I've been on stage that I shouldn't have been on stage. I should have called the show off. And there's almost no sound coming out at all, but just because of my sheer willpower and because of the fact that there's been so many people that have invested so much in me over the years, like I'd never wanted to let people down. And part of this is what I've been unpacking in therapy, but I would go out and do the show anyway. And there's been times where it's obvious to the people in the room that it's damaging me. When I did this song called Sensitive and I said, I feel like the wrestler, it's really like that. It's sad and scary. But part of what bothers me about it, to be really honest, is that there's people in the audience that I can see are getting off on that. Like they're loving it. And part of it is that I think that they're like, this guy is look how dedicated he is. But there's also something really gross about the fact that and you feel really used. There's times as an entertainer, and I'm saying I'm not just an entertainer, I'm a cultural worker, I'm an artist, but I'm also an entertainer and I'm also a commodity. And there's times when you feel, when it's just very obvious that these people are using me and they kind of don't care that this is bad for me. Matter of fact, the fact that it's bad for me is making them like it more. And I feel gross, man, about those times. And so I feel gross, and then usually I'll have to cancel a show or two after that, when I should have canceled the day that I was on stage. But like, and it's just the most defeated. It's the worst. It's one of the worst feelings on earth. I would say the worst feeling on earth is when I know that I have dishonored the creator. Like, that's the worst feeling in the world. Another one is when I've dishonored the people that love me and that care about me, when I've like harmed them and broken their hearts and disappointed them. That sucks. Like, that's really hard. Uh, one of the worst feelings. There's a lot of bad feelings, but being on stage and my voice isn't working is one of the worst feelings in the world. So there's a show that I have in mind in particular, but I don't want to say that one because I don't want, if there are people that are listening to this that were at that show, I don't want those people to feel like, dang, I was at that show. Did I harm him? Did I make him feel bad? I don't want those people to feel bad. Even though I came away from that feeling a certain way, I don't want those people to feel bad because they didn't make me get on stage, and who knows what their real, they might have just been seeing like, yo, this person is just so dedicated to what he's doing. And maybe they just felt bad for me and they're supporting me. I don't know. It's hard for me to know what's on somebody else's mind, but those are some. Oh, I was going to say too that when your children are hurt when your children are hurt or sick, that's a horrible feeling. Um, but very near the top of worst feelings ever. So if you've ever seen me when I've been on stage and my voice is not what I want it to be, just know that's hard, on a heart level, more so than just like I want to rock the show. I want everybody to cheer. That's hard on a heart level, along with it just physically hurts. Hopefully, there's some light ones here. Let me check the rest of these questions. Okay, there's one here. It says, "What's your most spiritual song, or what song would you say most revives and aligns you with your soul?" That's a really great question. For me, it's like there are songs that are very obviously about something positive. There's like the outward text of the song, like what is this song about? So all the beauty in this whole life is a love song for the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him. Own Light is a very like overtly spiritual song. That whole album. But honestly, my man Muhammad Kareem asked this question, who's a South African brother who lives, his family is South Asian. His like heritage ethnically, he's Desi, he's South Asian, and then he grew up in South Africa and now he lives in Istanbul. And so I'm just gonna shout out my man. But in any case, man, it's really wild that like, so what I've learned is that there are certain songs that are very overtly like this is what the song's about. But then there's this whole other element where certain songs that are given to me, and anyone that's creative knows that you honor the process and you show up and you write your songs. Sometimes you are intending to make a song that resonates with people. There are certain people that can make hits at will, it seems like. There are people that made a bunch of hit records. You know what I'm saying? You think about the people behind, like in Motown and stuff like that. Like, how many hit records did the Beatles write? How many hit records did Smokey Robinson write? How many hit records did whoever, over and over and over again, that these people just created these hit songs? That's a very specific thing. But for most of us, what we do is that we make a lot of music and we don't know what's going to resonate with people, or something like we show up and we just make a bunch of music. Some of it resonates. We never know. Then there are times where you're given something. It's like something is being delivered to me from beyond. And so people that are creative and that have actually had beautiful moments like this that really honor the creative process. We do a learning series called Blood on Beats, which talks about not only the mechanics of writing songs, but then also the spiritual side of what it is to birth a song. And I think we're going to do another one of those coming up soon. So listen for those. It's sold out. We sold out 2 cohorts last year, so we're going to do it again soon. I think, inshallah, this year. So listen up for that. Pay attention to that. Sign the mailing list if you haven't on brotherali.com. You'll get everything. But there's times where a song is just delivered to you. And people that really honor that creative process, I don't think any of them are truly atheist, agnostic, anti-spiritual. There's something beyond space and time that's delivering this song, that's gifting it to you. And that it's a gift for the world that's coming through us. We're the custodians of it. So those songs. And so in that sense, there are songs that really matter to people and they really have given people a lot of joy that, like, I wouldn't say that outwardly those are the most spiritual songs, but they mean a lot to people and they've given people. So like when I wrote, when I wrote Picket Fence, or when I wrote the song Fahim, or when I wrote Walking Away or something, like, I knew that those words, when I wrote actually Baby Girl, when I wrote Baby Girl, I was intending to write a song about a really important and central topic in my life that I was like, how in the world am I ever going to write about this? So sitting there honoring that process really meant a lot to me. And it took me a minute to figure out how to do it. And so that was an intentional one. Although I still had to sit with the divine creative, source. What the Muslims would say, Allah. I had to really ask Allah, like, I'm knocking at the door. Please give me a way into doing this. And I believe that I was given a gift, and that song resonates with people, and it really matters. And I'm grateful for that. But then there are other songs that, like, I didn't intend that at all. Forrest Whitaker really speaks to people, and a song Self-Taught. So like Self-Taught, for example, every time I do that song, people get really happy. And to me and Ant, that's the one song that I performed that I'm just like, why does this song mean so much to people? To me, I was trying to make a song about triumphing in my rap career. And when I listen to it, it sounds like a beat that anyone could have made during that period. Not anyone, it's a dope beat, but that's the kind of beat that Just Blaze was making. That's the kind of beat that, like, underground rappers were making in 2004 when that came out. Self-Taught is that kind of beat. It's that kind of song. It sounds like very inspired by what Jay-Z was doing and what was happening in rap at that time. But there's something about the energy of that song that's like, it's not my favorite one I ever made. I'm not mad at it. But to me, like, I do that song every time I perform because there's just something about when that beat drops, I just see the people that listen to my music like, yes, because it connected to them. It spoke to them in some certain way. That's a spiritual thing that is almost as spiritual, or maybe even more so, because I didn't do that. I was just showing up to the job site of being an underground rapper at that day. I was not intending to channel anything or communicate anything. I was like, man, yeah, me and my friends are dope, and we go on tour, and we're succeeding at where our dreams are coming true. That's what that song was about. Self-taught. Me and Slug almost got matching tattoos, and it's haram for a Muslim to get tattoos, at least I think the Jafari school of the Shia allow it, but for the Muslims, getting tattoos haram for the majority of mainstream Islam. And so, like, me and Slug were on tour, and it meant so much to us, like, what we were doing. We almost got matching tattoos that said Self-Taught. And I came home and made this song called Self-Taught. And I think actually we were going to do it. And then I was like, man, I can't lie to you. This is a promise that I made to myself I wouldn't do, is get a tattoo. He's like, oh, then don't do it. He's like, man, Not having a tattoo, this is how Slug is. He'll make you feel good about your decisions. Not having a tattoo is the new tattoo. But me and you will always know we almost got matching tattoos. And so we're the only ones that'll know it. He's like, you know what? Let's go home and make a song called Self Taught. And I made the song and I asked him to be on it. And he wasn't very enthusiastic about responding. So I just never bothered him about it again. But so, that's the song. Um, and so in some ways, that's very spiritual, even though it wouldn't seem like it. Someone is asking here about after listening to the Dr. Ebony episode, saying both of you and your wife listen to her podcast. I couldn't help but wonder if your wife ever gets envious or jealous of all these people you get to talk to on the podcast, or is it just part of the territory for her having a famous husband? So fame is super relative whenever people say famous. But I will say, so whenever people say famous about me, it's like I know actual famous people. Like I know Dave Chappelle is just different. You know what I mean? I've been around Kanye West. It's different. I've been around, legitimately famous people. It's different. Um, but I know what you mean by that. And so my wife in general does not want to meet famous people. Like she just, and the more connected she feels to somebody, and she'll be in a room with somebody that she feels really connected to, and she's the opposite of me. So my thing is to go and speak to those people. I never want to force myself on them, but I just energetically make myself very available to them and just see what their response is. And some of them, I can tell they just don't want to. So, an example of somebody I've always felt very drawn to Yasin Bey. From the second I was aware of him, I was like, this person is beyond me just loving his music. I feel connected to him. Like, I feel connected to him on a heart level. But I also know that he's somebody that it's weird. Like, for all the people I know, there are some people that are more magnetic than others. And it's not necessarily tied to how famous they are. But Yasin Bey is one of the most magnetic human beings and beautiful human beings that you could ever be around. And I'm saying he's every bit as magnetic as Dave Chappelle or as other people that. And like people just want to be around him. They want his attention. They compete for his energy, his time, his attention. And so I really made it my thing that like I know I'm connected to this man, this brother. I know it. But I am not going to force it, and I'm not going to be one of the people trying to get Yasim's attention. And I just left it alone for years. Like I started seeing him, I mean, in 2000 or even earlier. Like one of my first moments in Minneapolis was I was supposed to be one of the main support for Most Def when he was still Most Def, a Most Def show. And he wasn't there. And it was a whole thing in the Twin Cities. And I ended up telling the audience that he wasn't coming. And I ended up having to battle some like really well-known, respected people in the Twin Cities on stage at First Ave in front of an audience. And it was a pretty formative moment in my career, like early on. And so I've been around this guy for, man, from 2000. And when did we really start connecting? We probably started connecting just a few years ago. And it had to be on his terms. But then once it started, it was the like full on um it was the full on just brotherly affair that I knew it would be. You know what I mean? That like me and this guy are deeply connected. Like I love Yasin in a way that's just very particular, and it's just confirmation of how I was felt. But I always left it alone. But my wife in particular, she will not speak. Like she doesn't want to talk. She doesn't want to say anything. Um, even whether it's like authors that she loves or it's interesting. Just recently, she told me like, I want to meet Dr. West. She never met Dr. West. And so she said, I want to meet him. And that's very rare. Most of the time, she does not want to be around people. So like the story I told earlier where Ghostface was there. She's a big fan of Ghostface. And she's like, I just kind of want to be in a room and hear him talk, but I don't want to say anything. And so I introduced him and he was super like family. Like he was like, yo, I've been hearing so much about you. So happy to finally meet you. Blessings on the pregnancy, the whole thing, and Ghostface is a Sunni Muslim. And Orthodox Muslim, or how, I don't know how what's the best way to say it, but she was just like, yeah, wa alaikum salam, very quiet. And she's like that most of the time. She's not trying to be all around these people, you know. Um, so that's just the way that she is. And my man chose to say jealous or envious. She is never jealous of anybody. That is a vice that my wife does not possess. She is not jealous of anybody. She's not envious of anybody. She does not have that thing. She also doesn't talk bad about people behind their back. She doesn't backbite people. She doesn't slander people. Um, the only way that I can sense that she isn't feeling somebody is if she just doesn't have energy for them, or she gets quiet when they come up, or she'll just be like, okay. And I'm like, wait, what? And she'll be like, no, alhamdulillah. That's like, it's almost impossible. Like, she has no pettiness, Now, if someone betrays me, it's like she'll never forgive them. You know, that's one time. Like, if somebody does me dirty, she will never forgive them. But she just doesn't have, like, her pettiness is like there's almost none. Almost to the point where, like, where's your anger? Like, where's your pettiness at? But she's just been through so much in her life that in order for, I think, for her to survive, like, she either had to do away with that, or it was going to consume her. Like, she's somebody that the stuff she's been through, it's a miracle that she's alive. And that's all I'll say about that. Somebody's asking, when is BK1 going to come on the podcast? I've been asking him from the very beginning that I would love for him to come on the podcast. BK1 is one of the most important people in my life and in my career. I talked about, meeting Sadiq at Rhyme Sayers and getting connected to them. So I knew BK1 before them. Being in North Minneapolis, what I saw as being the hip hop scene was mostly North Side. Although South Minneapolis was making a lot of noise at this time, and St. Paul too. But the world that I was in was North Minneapolis. DJ Disco T, rest in peace, Disco T. People like Travatron, KMOJ, the radio station, North Commons was a big thing. There was stuff going on the South Side, and we would go to the South Side. There would be things at, like, Sabathani Community Center. There would be stuff happening over there, different things. But for the most part, I was a North Sider. And it was actually a North Side brother that told me about this whole underground hip hop thing that was happening. If you subscribe to the Caravan, and if you're hearing this, you're probably subscribed. There's a chance I might ask Brendan if we should put this one out as an episode. So you might be hearing this as just an episode of the podcast. I don't know. But anybody that subscribes to I think the top 2 tiers of the podcast, I recorded an oral history of recording my demo tape, Rites of Passage, and it covers, like, the whole first portion of my career. And you'll hear that there was a brother that I didn't even know the underground independent hip hop was happening, because I was married. I was an imam at the mosque. I was, like, working 2 jobs. I was trying to move on with life. I thought that I'm probably won't be a rapper for a living. I probably will be an imam, but I still get to communicate with people and connect with people and share ideas with people. And that's okay. I was okay with that. I thought I was. And then I met Rasul because we both worked at UPS. And Rasul was also a city bus driver. And man, Rasul put me on to this whole underground independent thing, the hip hop thing that was happening. And Dilated Peoples was one of the first that he told me about. But he told me about Rhyme Sayers. And he also told me there's a radio station you can listen to. And the college radio station on Saturday mornings, they play this underground hip hop music. So I listened to it. The first time I listened to it, I heard all this music I didn't even know existed. And I just went to the radio station, and I had recorded one song. I had one cassette tape single that I had recorded, like, recent. And so I gave it to them. I basically was like, will you play this? I played it. And I met Brendan, BK1, that day. And he was one of the main guys at the Beatbox radio show. And they were throwing a show, a benefit concert for homeless people called Hip Hop for the Homeless, at the university where they were going to school at University of Minnesota. And the headliners, it was a dual headliner, co-headlining show with Rhyme Sayers Collective at that time, which was Slug and Idea, Musab, a whole crew, super dope. And also All Natural group out of Chicago that was really influential on me at that time as well. And this was late 1999 that they were getting ready to throw that show. So this was 1998 actually that I met Brendan. And I started going in there, and he put me onto this whole scene, like really thoroughly schooled me to everything that was going on. Raucous and Stone's Throw and all these white label records and things that you had to be connected to find out about. And really dope. And so he started sneaking me into the radio station at night because they had an early version of Pro Tools, and we would just go and record. I would record freestyles. I would record the verses I had written. I would make beats and rap to them, all this stuff that was early on with him. And he actually introduced me to Rhyme Series for the first time. So anyway, then he ended up becoming my DJ, and he was my DJ for 10 years, from 2000. The first show we ever did together was we had a party for when Idea won the Blaze Battle on HBO. We did an event, a live viewing at this club called the Red Sea on the West Bank in Minneapolis. And so he DJ'd for me that night because I didn't have a DJ. And then he was my DJ up till 2010 when he started having kids. And then our last show together was Soundset 2010. I think we actually did one or two after that, but that were not planned. But because I just was in a jam, and so he came and DJ'd for me. And so then he went on from that to start a radio station, an anti-racist radio station in South Minneapolis in the neighborhood where George Floyd was killed. And he ran that radio station for another 10 years. He started it, I don't know if he started in 2010, but that's when the idea started kind of bubbling. So he got off the road at the end of 2010, and then he built this radio station from the ground up, got it funded, all this stuff. And in 2020, and he was dope because he's a great DJ, great programmer, but he's like, this is an expressly anti-racist radio station. And it's going to be, so he, as a white man, didn't want to choose any of the music. He never got on the mic. He's like, I'm just a servant. And the community of, the diverse community that he lives in, he and his wife, it was like, they're going to be the voices, and they're going to determine what's played and what the programming is. I'm just a servant. I go and do all the unglamorous work. And so he did that for a long time. And in 2020, he's like, you know what? I don't even, technically, I'm the station manager. Like, I'm the one going after the grants. And like, I just don't want to be in the driver's seat at all. So he decided to turn that station over to a person of color. And there wasn't anybody immediately there to do that. But he said, if we make this thing available and let the community know and take the time to really figure out who's the person for this job, and then he was able to find somebody that we actually love, and shout out to Andrea Pierre, who's the executive director of the station there now. So Brendan was doing all that. So right as he was transitioning out, that's when I was making the transition to being completely independent and wanted to start this podcast. So I reached out to BK1. I said, listen, man, I know your history in radio. I want to do a podcast, and I am not able to do these big projects completely on my own. Even if I'm the bulk, I can do the heavy lifting creatively, but I need a partner. I need somebody to be in this thing with. I need somebody to help me stay motivated, focused, somebody to do the logistical stuff. Like I do better when I have somebody to be accountable to, somebody to share it with. So almost like, an executive producer for an album, or, I've learned that about myself. I can do even some of these situations. I'm the majority of the creative energy behind something. And I even end up there's a lot of logistical things I can do. There's a lot of that stuff that I'm very capable and like doing, but I need a partner. So I asked him, would you come in with me as a partner on this podcast? Also, because I know creatively and just instinctively what Brendan brings to the table. Like, man, I was like, who would be the ideal producer and partner on this podcast? So I started with him. And he was like, oh, there's something interesting about that. And so then the more we talked, the more we realized that what I'm really launching here is a media company that can handle all of the stuff that I want to do. Musically, I'm putting my own music out now. So it would be music, but also I want to write and I want to do learning series and I want to devote a lot more time to my speaking, lecturing, teaching. I want to do, a podcast. I want to do all of these things. So really what I want to launch is a media company that's just a way to produce all of the productions that I do. And Brendan's like, yo, I'm in for that. I'm here for that. And so that's what Travelers Media is. So my man is asking, when is Brendan going to come on the show? I can't wait to get him on here to talk. But he'll do it when the time is right for him. It's another one of those situations where he's well aware that I want to have him on. And so when the time feels right for him, he'll come on. It's totally up to him. So those are the things that you guys asked, the people in the caravan asked this week. Really cool conversations, really cool memories. Thank you for those opportunities to reflect. There's a couple things that the people in the caravan didn't ask me. Like, these aren't things that caravan people normally are going to do. Although you're welcome to challenge me. I say that every time I speak. People are like, let's have a Q&A. I'm like, you're welcome to correct. You're welcome to comment. You're welcome to add on to things. You're welcome to challenge me on things. And I genuinely mean that. People like to do that online, and people very rarely do it in person. But there are some things that kind of have I've been seeing online that I just want, because I have this platform now, to just share. One of them is I posted a clip of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he's being questioned by the press. And this is a clip that I edited together, and I think it's from different parts of the conversation. But someone asked him, and this is from the 60s, so the way that news reporters talked, they said, "Have you ever been threatened?" And he says, "Yes, sir, many times." And then someone else says, "Do you ever fear for your life?" And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad turned around and glared him directly in the eyes, like not menacing, not anything, just utter certainty. Made and held eye contact with him. "Have you ever been threatened?" "Yes, sir, many times." "Do you fear for your life?" And he looked him directly in the eyes and said, "No, sir." And just the way that he held that. And so I posted that, and I just said, infinite forever mood. And I got a bunch of Muslims that just said, "How dare you post Elijah Muhammad?" Now, the part of the history that they're talking about is the fact that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad led the Nation of Islam from the early 1930s until he died in 1975. And people are saying horrible things about Elijah Muhammad, and these are Muslims that don't know this history. But I also say, if you don't know this history, it's not that it's not available. It's just that what I would ask you to sit with is that you don't care to know this history. And I think you should know this history. The Nation of Islam theologically is not the same in terms of theology, in terms of the language of theology. They're not the same as the understanding and language around theology and beliefs, and even in a lot of cases, practice of traditional Islam, of mainstream Islam, of Sunni Islam, of historical Islam. Now, I say that carefully and with almost an asterisk behind or with it, because I have dear friends in the Nation of Islam, like people that I love, people that I look up to, people that I admire their practice, that I like view them as being better Muslims than me in terms of their state, their being, their practice, themselves, how they respond and how they react to people, their worship, I look up to them. And I'm not just saying that to be nice to them, it's the truth. And they know that from being with me. Like, these are people that I admire beyond words. And some of those people actually would say that the differences in theology between the Nation of Islam and traditional Orthodox, historical, mainstream Islam are only linguistic. And if you look at things on the level of allegory and of spiritual meaning and metaphor and symbol and even myth, and not myth to say that something is untrue, but myth meaning a story that encapsulates meaning. So the specific details of the story and whether or not the literal the literal reality of the story isn't the important part. What's important is the meaning that the story encapsulates. There are people that would say that the differences in the theology of the Nation of Islam and traditional Islam are just that they're misunderstood and they shouldn't be taken literally. And I just want to be respectful of that, just because those are people that I respect those people. And so I want to respect their assertion that they believe that to be the case. I regard the Nation of Islam theology to be different in major ways from mainstream traditional historical Islamic theology. That's my perspective and my position, and that's theologically where I'm at. I see those as differences, and I see them as major. But I do regard them to be Muslim, and like I said, and as people, and even as Muslims, I look up to those people, a lot of them, and there are things about them that I just absolutely love. But here's the thing about a couple of things about Elijah Muhammad, and so that's what people are talking about. There were Muslims in the comments and in the DMs like, "How dare you? This man is horrible." In historical theological tradition of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the last prophet and the last messenger. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad understood himself to be the messenger of Allah. And so he actually used that term, the messenger of Allah. Also, there was big differences between him and Malcolm X parted ways. Everybody knows that. There's a lot about it that people don't seem to know that I think is important, but none of those are the conversation that I'm trying to have right now. The reality is I posted Elijah Muhammad, and I posted him for a very specific reason, but also when Muslims, mainstream Muslims, disrespect Elijah Muhammad, it just really reveals that you don't know the history of him or the religion of Islam in America, the Muslims that are in America. So at the time that first of all, Elijah Muhammad did not originate the Nation of Islam. It was a person from overseas, a really mysterious figure who is known as Wali Farad Muhammad, Wallace D. Fard, Farad Muhammad, several different names. And that person came and was teaching. He was selling silks in the Black community in and around Detroit, Michigan. And it was actually Elijah Muhammad's wife, Clara Poole, or Clara Evans. Allah have mercy on her. She was the first one to hear these teachings and actually think that, like, this might be good for my husband, Elijah Poole, who is from Sandersville, Georgia, or at least from that area of Sandersville, Georgia, which is the same place that Berry Gordy is from. So Berry Gordy came from Sandersville, Georgia to Detroit and started the biggest Black music empire that there's ever been in America. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came from Sandersville area to Detroit, Michigan around the same time and started arguably the biggest Black religious organization that there's ever been. It's kind of like small empires, within America. So Clara heard the message and brought her husband to the meetings. Elijah Poole was from a family of preachers. He had moved to the north from Georgia, and he was told that there would be work there. And then also there was constant lynchings during that time. People don't realize that literally thousands of people were lynched in public during that period of time. And so he was escaping the lynchings. They get to Detroit and there's no work. The industrial work that they were promised didn't exist the way that they were told that it would be. And so he had fallen on hard times, disconnected from the land, disconnected from family. So if you read and study the history of that great migration and the trails of migration that happened during that period of time, they were really psychologically and spiritually really difficult for people, for women and men for different reasons. But men came from these very traditional roles and related to the land. So even if people couldn't be in business or if they couldn't get a job, they would farm and, they would grow crops and they would go hunt and things like that and still be able to provide for their families. But in the North, all that was cut off. And then also you don't have your church and you don't have your family. You don't have your extended family that you're used to. And so he was drinking and he was really on hard times and having a difficult time. So the teachings of this mysterious man from the East gave him a sense of confidence. And the theology of the Nation of Islam comes first and foremost from this person from the East. Now, the people in America still don't know what Islam is. Most Americans have zero idea what Islam is really about. They don't know the first thing about Islam. And I don't care what you think you know, you probably don't know much at all. It's just the reality of it. Not blaming anybody, it just is what it is. Um, so he had a third grade education and he was taught this is Islam. And he was taught a theology that sounds very strange to historic, practicing, mainstream Orthodox Muslims. But that's what he was taught. And he had no reference point to know anything other than that. And so he taught that up until 1975. Several people in the Nation of Islam went and studied. One of his sons actually went and studied. Akbar Muhammad actually went and studied at Al Azhar University in Cairo. They brought in a Syrian Lebanese teacher named Dr. Jamil Diab to teach the children Arabic. And so they learned Arabic. And there were many people that came out from Elijah Muhammad. I mean, Elijah Muhammad is the one that inspired Muhammad Ali. He's the one that inspired Malcolm X. He's the one that inspired Minister Louis Farrakhan. He's the one that inspired Clarence 13X, who started the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths, which is most of the spiritual language at the heart of hip-hop culture of the Universal Zulu Nation. He inspired all these people. He also inspired many others that never joined the ranks of the Nation of Islam. In a lot of ways, he inspired the Black Panther movement via Malcolm X. In a lot of ways, he inspired James Baldwin. If you read James Baldwin, Fire Next Time, he says he visited Elijah Muhammad and he wished that he could jump into Elijah Muhammad's arms and ask him to be like a father to him, that he really drew a lot of inspiration from them. A few Black academics and even Christian leaders and Christian theologians in the Black tradition, like Dr. James Cone, who's the father of Black liberation theology within the Christian church. He inspired him. He inspired so many people. And Dr. James Cone is the teacher of Barack Obama's minister, and his Jeremiah Wright, who, Obama got in trouble for being connected to him because he said, not God bless America, God damn America. Amazing. And so, Elijah Muhammad, also Dr. Sebi, who so many people that are connected to, the diet, a particular way of people from the African diaspora eating alkaline foods instead of acidic foods and eating natural foods and what have you. He credits Elijah Muhammad also with a lot of his inspiration and being one of the only people that was really teaching this, teaching these ways of eating. So Elijah Muhammad, I mean, regardless of, I guarantee any of these heroes, that if any of these people are heroes, but then also whoever your heroes are in terms of positivity. I mean, Nipsey Hussle was inspired by people who were inspired by people who was inspired by Elijah Muhammad. Michael Jackson, they say that Michael Jackson was a big fan of Elijah Muhammad. Prince was a big fan. I mean, Elijah Muhammad just is the inspiration for so much Black power, Black nationalism, Pan-African, so much. But what I'm talking about right now is Black Islam. And so when Elijah Muhammad passed away, you basically have multiple streams of Islam that come from him. Clarence 13X was a member of his Mosque Number 7 in New York. He left or was put out, and he starts the Nation of Gods and Earth, the 5%ers, which is like all your favorite hip hop artists, you know what I'm saying? From Big Daddy Kane to Rakim to Brand Nubian, to, it's just all done. I mean, it's all of your favorite hip hop artists are inspired by the reason that we say peace in hip hop is because of the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. A lot of times we don't want to see that. But so that's one major stream is Clarence 13X, who becomes the father, called the father or Father Allah in the Nation of Gods and Earth. The 5% movement includes Busta Rhymes, includes all of Wu-Tang Clan, especially in the beginning. On down the line. It's just the references go on and on and on. And then you also have Minister Farrakhan. Minister Farrakhan was also, comes out of the Nation of Islam and Elijah Muhammad. and very directly. So his teacher. So at the time that Elijah Muhammad died, there were basically two movements that come directly from his lineage. One is Minister Farrakhan's movement. And then when you talk about the influence of Minister Farrakhan, that all has to be credited to Elijah Muhammad as well. So you're talking about Eminem. You're talking about like how many people are inspired by Minister Farrakhan. The Million Man March. You're talking about the Fugees. You're talking about Lauryn Hill. You're talking about, Kendrick Lamar. I mean, it's just endless. But then also, this is what the traditional Orthodox Muslims from other places need to know. Elijah Muhammad's son, Wallace Muhammad, Wadathuddin Muhammad, W.D. Muhammad, Allah have mercy on him and be pleased with him. He, during the time that his father was alive, was taught Arabic by Dr. Jamil Diab, and he read the Quran for himself. And he independently came to the conclusion, what my father was taught in his teaching is not what I'm seeing here in the Quran. And so he said, but I believe what's in the Quran. And he had this kind of conflict and this tension from very early when he was really young. And a lot of people know that Malcolm X actually ended up going to traditional Orthodox Islam. And it was Wallace Muhammad that actually taught him about that, encouraged him to do that. He was Wallace Muhammad, Warathuddin Muhammad, W.D. Muhammad, Imam Muhammad. He was the inspiration for Wallace Muhammad, or for Malcolm X. And also, when Elijah Muhammad died, that's who Muhammad Ali followed all the way up until the time that he passed away. And so he led the majority of the Nation of Islam. Now, my friends in Minister Farrakhan's Nation of Islam might disagree with this, but he led the majority of the members of the Nation of Islam out of that theology. He started out, Wadathuddin Muhammad started by saying that this theology is not in alignment with Islamic theology. And, saying that, we as Muslims theologically don't believe that God comes in the flesh of a person. Human beings are not God. We're the creation of God. We're the creation of God. We are the representatives of God. We're our life. We're breathed into by God. We're created by God. We're signs of God. And that's where some of my friends in the Nation of Islam are going to say that this is just linguistic. I don't believe it is linguistic, but I respect the fact that they do believe that. If you read Ibn Arabi, for example, you're going to see language that feels really congruent with the Nation of Islam. And that's understandable. But in any case, so Imam Warathuddin Muhammad said that, and he also dismantled a lot of the systems of the Nation of Islam. He said there's not going to be any more FOI, the paramilitary unit. We're not doing that anymore. He decentralized the businesses. So they had at that time, a chain of grocery stores, either called Your Muslim Grocery Store or Supreme or things like that. And all of these businesses, he said, now you're going to own those. Those are no longer owned by my headquarters in Chicago. And then he after that spent the rest of his time saying, but what was good about that language, about that teaching, about that organization? And so a huge mass of people, some say hundreds of thousands of people, some say 500,000 people, the largest mass conversion of people to traditional Orthodox Sunni Islam in recent history, and certainly in America. So you need to know that 500,000 people, or hundreds of thousands of people, I just got hungry for bean pie, hundreds of thousands of people converted to Islam in recent history in 1975. And there's and those are the people that made it possible for other Muslims to come to America. Those are the people that when a few folks were coming from other countries and they had names like Muhammad and they were calling themselves Mo. They had names like Rahman, Abdul Rahman, and they were calling themselves Ray. When they had names like, they were changing their names to sound more American. Those people, those black people were changing their names from names like that to being Muhammad and to being Ali and to being Kareem and to being Abdul Rahman and then to being Al Amin and to, they were changing their names to Muslim names. And they were opening Islamic centers around the country, the first Islamic centers all over the country. And masajid, mosques, were opened by this community and were started by this community. It's a path forged by this community. That's when I became a Muslim, that's the community that I joined. And I still consider myself part of that community, even though when the Imam died in 2008, I continued studying and I started studying, with people around the world and what have you. But we trace our religious, spiritual, communal, cultural, and even our sense of self, our psychological lineage to Elijah Muhammad. And the way that Imam Warthi Muhammad understood Elijah Muhammad's uh, desires. So Minister Farrakhan and Imam Muhammad, they had different understandings of what Elijah Muhammad wanted and intended. And Minister Farrakhan thought, like, this shouldn't be undone. We want to keep the Nation of Islam exactly how Elijah Muhammad had it. And so that was his work. But Imam Warthi Muhammad said, we're going to build our life around theological and in terms of also orthodox in its practice, orthopraxy, they call that, orthodoxy and orthopraxy, traditional Islam. It'll still be very culturally Black and still very American, but and that's the community I joined. So for me, and he believed that Elijah Muhammad knew that he had those feelings and that he was giving him his approval, his silent approval. Now, our friends in the Nation of Islam, they don't see it that way, and I understand that, and I respect it even. But that's the way that we understand it. That's the way that we see it. And so Elijah Muhammad is an important figure for so many reasons. And to disrespect him is to disrespect all of the American Muslims, all the Black American Muslims that really laid the foundation for Muslims to be here from the East, and also for Islam to be the cultural force that it is through Black culture, through hip hop specifically. So when you diss Elijah Muhammad, you don't know what you're talking about. Also, I post Elijah Muhammad because I post whatever I want to. And if nothing else, I was even just talking about his fearlessness in that moment of him being threatened. And y'all don't need to know this, but I mean, I get threats all the time. And I was being threatened by somebody who didn't like something that I did and who was threatening me behind the scenes. I had been threatened. And it happens all the time. And I don't sweat it. You know what I mean? I got threatened by somebody who, there was like one person and another, there was like two of us that this person was obsessed with. And he said he was going to kill me, and he said he was going to kill this other person. He tried to kill the other person and he went to prison for it. I was the other person. It was two of us that he wanted to kill. He tried to kill the other person. He didn't kill him, but he went to prison for that. So like, it's not a joke to me. You know what I mean? And so when I posted that, I was drawing upon that spiritual ocean of Elijah Muhammad. Also, I'm aware that there are people that are still loyal to Malcolm, and I love Malcolm, and I became a Muslim because of Malcolm. And at the end of Malcolm's life, he and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad were beefing with each other. And there are people that say, like, Elijah Muhammad had him killed. It's a lot more nuanced than you probably know. But I also think about the fact that there are, people in Malcolm's family that I've met and know and that follow me, and I follow them. So when I post Elijah Muhammad, I wonder, how do they feel about that? But the reality is that Elijah Muhammad's an inspiration for me, and I don't make apologies for that. And he's one of the most important people in American life, and doesn't mean I agree with doesn't mean I agree with everything that he ever said or did, but I don't have to. That's not my framework. That's not my litmus test. That's not my standard. I don't have to agree with everything that anybody says, except for the Prophet Muhammad himself, peace be upon him. Every other person, and the people that are on this podcast, there are people that come to me and they say, why did you have this person? Why did you have that? I can't, this person said this. And it's like, yeah, I don't agree with that part of what they're doing. But my belief and my understanding of my role is that I connect with anybody that's doing good based on the connection that we have around that good. And if I believe them. My experience of them is to be a person of goodwill who's sincere and who wants good for the and that they're doing their best. And if we have different ideological understandings and things like that, that's going to be all right with me. We don't need uniformity to have unity. And that's something that I learned from my brother, student minister Nuri Muhammad, who's a dear friend of mine that I love. And he's one of the star ministers in the Nation of Islam. And I love the brother. We disagree theologically. And we know that. You know what I'm saying? And we know that. And but we share an aim, we share a mission. So, for those of you who are saying that, you should just be aware that, like, you don't know what this man is. You don't know what he means to people. And I don't need you to know because I post what I post. Lastly, I'm just going to say a little something about this because, this is like something that people have come at me about. And they're coming at me about it because it hasn't felt like it's my thing to speak on. So I'm not really going to speak on it. But I've had a number of people come at me. And I mean, forgive me for just noticing that they seem to be um, uh, liberal, progressive, white sisters that are angry and upset with me because they really feel that I should be posting about what's happening with the women in Iran vis-a-vis the hijab. And there was an extreme one in particular of somebody who posted online. They didn't even talk to me about it, but they posted online. And it's very similar things that people say. And most of the time when someone holds a view, it's like they're saying things very similarly to how other people say them. So one of the reasons I love Adrienne Marie Brown so much is because she is not repeating the tropes and the nomenclature of the people that may agree with her. She's got her own language for stuff, which lets me know that a lot of that is her own thinking. And so whether I agree word for word with her exact ideological framing of things, it's like, man, this is a person who, this is coming from her heart. She's sincere. I believe her to be sincere in her work. But so people a lot of times say the same thing. You're supposed to be their voice. And I thought you were one of the progressive Muslims, and now I see that you're not. And your silence is complicit. Your silence is you being complicit. Your silence is violence, and you're supposed to be using your platform for this. And why are you not speaking about this? And as a Muslim man, you're supposed to be speaking out about this. And there's just so many presumptuous things. And they're like, you were my hero. I was one of your biggest fans, and I'm no longer that. I don't support you anymore. And there's just so many things there that, that I find interesting. One of the things that people should just know about me in general. So first of all, I guess we'll just say a little something. So first of all, like just the things that certain people focus on. Like there are so many causes in the world. There are so many injustices in the world. And certain people focus on certain injustices because they speak to them. They hit differently in their heart based on their particular focus. Each of us has a focus. Like what are we focused on? There's so much going on in the world. There's just so much data, and there's so many different people having so many experiences. What am I focused on? Well, a lot of it is what's the media that I consume, and what is that media shining the camera on? Also, what's my experience? What's my education? And I don't just mean level of education, but like where does my education come from? What's my particular interest in all of this? What's my worldview? What are my personal experiences? And then what are the emotional attachments that I have to all of those things? That really determines what someone's going to focus on. And when it comes to, we just see that like certain people are focused on certain things and not others. So these women weren't up in arms when someone said that Muslim women could not wear hijab in France, for example. Or, there are times when Muslim religious women have wanted to wear the hijab and they've been beaten for doing so. by police in Muslim countries who don't want them to wear the hijab because of what it symbolizes to them. I live in a country where there are women that like are in my that live in my building in my neighborhood that remember a time when, I mean, recently, like people just started wearing hijab again in Turkey in like 2012, 2013, 2014. It was just starting to happen. Um, and now you see about half the women wear it. And like there was a lot of young women that wear it. And I mean, they had it ripped off their bodies and they were beaten and they were arrested and they were, big protests, wearing the hijab. That didn't make the Western news cycles, and there weren't people that were protesting about that. Um, so just the focus that like now this particular one is what people are focused on. I'm saying like like I don't need to say that I don't think women should be forced to wear something or not wear it. I don't need to be I don't need to feel like I have to weigh in on that. And I'll get to like what is my platform in a second because people have these expectations of like what your platform is, how you use your platform, all this kind of stuff. And it usually is like, well, I thought you were a projection of my opinions and my ideology and my positions. So, it's usually these people were not fans to begin with because like if someone really is a listener, you're going to hear that I'm a person that's having an experience and I'm under development all the time. And so the things that I choose to talk about or not talk about, I've made several I've had several kind of periods in my career and life with having a platform and even understanding what that means. And so usually if someone says you didn't use your platform for what I wanted you to use it for, and it's not even that I weighed in a way that they felt like, well, he disagrees with me. It's just that I didn't focus on this thing and I didn't talk about whatever the thing was that they wanted me to talk about. Like you were just really, you're revealing that I was some sort of extension and projection of your identity. So you being a fan of mine, as you would say, was like that was a projection that meant something in your public narrative and vision and view of yourself publicly. That like I wear this guy's merch and I repost his stuff and I listen to this song because it's part of my thing. And I understand that we've all done it probably. A lot of us have done that. But that's different from actually receiving and connecting with me based on what's going on inside me. The people that have come to my shows for 20 years, they knew me when I was dressed in all black, kneeling on the flag. They knew me when I was in an Adidas suit, cussing the people out. They knew me when I was in a white T-shirt, a raggedy white T-shirt, battling somebody and maybe punching them in the face. They knew me when I was in a, you know what I'm saying, when I was in traditional Islamic clothes with prayer beads wrapped around my arm or neck and this kind of like Andalusian patterns behind me. They've known me in all types of lights. You know what I'm saying? They've known me in a lot of different phases. And they rock with me because like, man, on a heart level, I'm here. I'm cool hearing whatever this guy is going through at the moment. Those are the people I consider the people that rock with me. And sometimes I say stuff and do stuff they don't agree with. And they're cool with it, and I'm cool with it because we're connecting on a heart level. And they see me as a person the same way I was talking about Adrienne Marie Brown. That's how they see me. And that's deeply respectful to me. And that's a bond to me. Where like they might not agree with everything I say or exactly how I see it or frame it. But like they see a person who is sincerely trying to navigate life and talk about what's going on as they navigate, and they're here for that. And I love those people to death. Like I love them so much. They're all invited to Islam also. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of them do become Muslim. But that's not a requirement, and it's not a requirement for them that I become whatever they are, or that I share whatever belief they have, or opinions, or assessments, or observations that they have. Anyway, so that's one of the major themes here. The other one is like my wife and daughters are converts to Islam just like I am. I'm a convert to Islam. My wife is a convert. My daughters were raised Muslim. My wife wears hijab. I never had a conversation with my wife about hijab. Never did. There's times where I'll be like, it'll just be like, hey, you want me to iron that for you? You know what I'm saying? Or something like that. or I'll just be like, man, just like I would like anything else with clothes, or like if she would be like, hey, I don't know if you know, but those two colors don't might not match the way you think they do, something like that. But I never said my wife has to or can't or whatever. I never had an opinion about it. But my wife wears hijab, and she would feel uh, really violated if someone that's not me or her family would see her not in her hijab. She would feel exposed, violated. She would feel like somebody hacked her phone, and like, you know what I mean? That would not be a good feeling for her. My daughter is the same way. And my wife never told my daughter to wear hijab. It's just that she does, and she always has, and she loves it. It's part of who she is. Now she's got all kind of other stuff going on where she's a teenager, so she's like exploring all type of stuff that's not part of who our family, that's not coming from us. She's finding her own identity on her own. You know what I'm saying? And working out what that means and navigating it. But for her, there's one of the days that she, and so there's a thing that Muslim women talk about. And I can't speak for them. I can't speak for anybody but me. I speak for me in all cases and things that matter to me. But I will say that my wife and the women in my community that wear hijab, um, notice when it's like, well, how come it's only a human rights thing when people want to take their hijabs off? What about those of us that wear the hijab because we believe we're obeying God, and it's a choice for us, and it's part of our religion and part of our culture and part of our what we see to be our dignity, and our this is the way that we believe that we are dignified. This is what this means to us, and also culturally, and also what it symbolizes, and it's on so many levels. They're like, how come I'm not human when I'm trying to wear my hijab, but suddenly I'm human to you when someone wants to take their hijab off? And then also these old school racist just tropes about Muslim men are uniquely bad to women that I just reject. It's not true. You know what I mean? So, and now here's the most important part, though. Here's the thing that you need to know about me. The critique that I respect when I'm speaking truth and when I'm critiquing something, the critique that I respect, particularly coming from the groups that I come from, I respect when people are critiquing themselves. And all the people that I like and love, they have critiques not only of the system, but of self. If you look at historically Muslims, Black Muslims, right? These are the communities I'm in. Black Muslims have critique of the government for sure, but if you listen to what Black Muslims are saying internally, it's always like, we need to do better. That's what I respect. I don't weigh in. Here's another part of this thing is I don't weigh in internal debates that don't affect me politically. You know what I'm saying? So if there's debates going on in the Black community about whatever, Kanye or whatever, I don't weigh in on that. I might have an opinion, but it's not for me to even state. It's not for me to even state what my opinion is because I'm not part of that conversation. And so the critique that I respect is self critique, especially for the groups that I'm in. My critiques, my public critiques and truth telling, I am speaking to groups that I'm in, that I belong to, and that listen to me. That's the criteria for me. What are the groups that I'm in? And those are also make up a group of people that also listens to me and engages me and cares what I think. So my critiques are going to be, I'm from a European American family. You can say white. So my critiques are going to be for European American people, for white people, and asking as a self critique, as a like, yo, this is what this, a lot of it is going to be that. I'm also a man. So a lot of it is going to be that, you know. So I critique groups that I'm in and that my listeners are in because that's what is valuable to me. People say, you moved to Turkey, why don't you criticize the government of Turkey? Also, it's not my place to do that because politically, I'm still a citizen of the US. And is the US, are they doing all kind of sanctions and stuff to Turkey? Yes, they are. So like, what do I look like coming here and critiquing it? You might have a different opinion, and that's fine. You are allowed to do that. I'm telling you that when I speak truth to power, I'm an American. So when I critique, I'm critiquing the American government. When I critique a government, it'll be my government. And I'm part of all these groups that are in power. You know what I'm saying? But people could also say, you're a Muslim. Why don't you critique Muslims? Because politically, I'm a convert to Islam. So I do critique Muslims, and I do that in Muslim spaces. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of times where like the majority of my community isn't going to know that, like, there's this whole there are movements within Islam, within American Islam particularly, that I've had experience with and that I've had bad experiences with. There are people I've had bad experiences with. I'm not going to come broadcast that all over the place. You don't hear me critiquing those things outwardly, but in places where I have a voice, I do critique those things there. But as a non-Muslim, as someone who's not in the Muslim community, you're not going to know that. What I do with my audience, who are mostly, overwhelmingly people who are in all of these powerful, dominant groups, is critique us. That's what I do, because those things matter to me. I don't critique everything. There's all types of stuff that I'm not talking about. I also have learned over the years, like, what feels effective? Like, in what ways can I show up that feel effective? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are the things that I can do? And I've done it by years of doing the work, and like relating to and engaging with and really deeply connecting with the people that listen to my music, and seeing how different things affect and impact them. There's times where I'm just got my Uzi out and I'm just in terms of speaking about my opinions. And I'm very capable of doing that. It's not that I can't debate. It's not that I can't. I'm nice. Like, man, I can win an argument, and I can be very compelling, and I can state my case very passionately and I'm very convinced of my opinions. There's no shortage of that. It's not like I don't have opinions. It's not like I don't have beefs. It's not like I don't feel wronged by anybody. That's not what's valuable for me to do. What's valuable for me to do is talk about things on the level of meaning, or if I'm making a specific critique, it's to a powerful group that I am in, and that a lot of the people that listen to me are in. So I can actually speak to those of us who can do something about that from the inside. I'm talking about whiteness and white supremacy and all the pathologies and sicknesses that go along with it, with white people. And to a certain degree publicly, because so many of the people that listen to me are white. My fan base is not Muslim. My fan base is not in Iran. And I'm saying, yeah, there are people that listen to me in Iran. You know what I'm saying? But that's not where my sphere of influence is. That's not what my power is related to. You know what I'm saying? And if you're talking about men, Muslim men, uh, forcing people to wear hijab and things like that, that's just not part of my experience. I'm sure there are times that it's happened, but I'm saying that's not in our community. The women that I know a lot of women that choose to wear hijab and a lot that don't. And for us, it's like, just what we believe about life and about our religion is that we do the things because we believe in the Creator. We believe in the revelation. We believe in the prophet, peace be upon him, and him and his wives and his companions and his family and the people around him. Those are our examples. And we are desiring to submit because we believe that those things are the best way for a human being to live. We believe that that way of life is natural, it's universal, and that it's the healing balm that we need to bring us back to a healthy balance with ourselves, with the Creator, with the world of meaning, politically, environmentally, culturally, economically, psychologically, in terms of intellectually, all of it. That's what we believe about Islam. And so all of us are struggling to figure out, am I strong enough to do it, to live up, to have the courage in my convictions, to have the discipline, to have the opportunity? And we're all navigating all of this stuff on so many different levels. And so what's happening in Iran, not to mention that Iran is a very specific government. It's a very specific expression of Islam that I don't come from. You know what I'm saying? Their government they're Shias. I'm not Shia. But so there are so many different levels and layers of nuance there. And so when people come to me and they're like, you're supposed to be talking about this, or you're not supposed to be doing that, it's like, man, also, I'm not a publicly argumentative person. I don't believe that that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing to do in general. I think very little is gained from arguing. And I think there's so much arguing going on. Like, argument is one of the just, it's like a breeding ground for the ego. Like, the ego loves argument more than anything. And when we're trying to speak truth, I mean, argument and antagonizing each other is one of the worst ways to do it, which is why I appreciate people that speak a certain way. And again, it's not that nobody's done me wrong. It's not that there's nobody I disagree with. It's not like that I don't have an axe to grind or a bone to pick with anybody, although I would like to be that way. And there are people there are people that have and hold strong opinions and want to argue about it that'll be like, oh, that's a cop out. You're spiritually bypassing. I would like to speak truth without harming anybody. That's my desire, without dishonoring anybody. I would like to speak truth without having to argue with anybody. And if I'm in a position where I have to do that, then I would do it. But I am speaking about the things that I choose to speak about. I choose to speak as a man about the fact that men sexually abuse women. I choose to speak as a father about the challenges of and trying to be a good father. I spoke one time. I did say something about people using slurs or certain like pejorative language about gay people because I said the F word on my first record, on my first album. I said that word. So I came back and I said something about on the Us album, the fact that like I had come to know people that were struggling with being gay and they felt, a certain way. So I said, it's a cold world, y'all. Shame on us. That was me addressing something that I had said. It's a critique of self. You know what I mean? I talk about all of these issues. So when I talk about race, I'm talking to the group that I'm in and the people that listen to me. You know what I'm saying? That's my approach. And that's what I respect the most when people have the actual courage of their convictions to speak to themselves. And also I do it in a way that's challenging to the people who are paying me. You know what I'm saying? It's so easy to challenge somebody from outside. Iran is not paying my bills. You know what I'm saying? Those people are not, and I do have listeners and I do have supporters. I'm not trying to deny you, but you know what I'm saying? I love you and you know what I'm saying? But those are not the people. The people that are supporting me and the people that actually admire me or connect with me or see me as valuable and useful with something worthy of listening to, saying something worthy of listening to, those are the people I'm trying to talk to because that's my opportunity. I'm not, I was talking in the Twin Cities music scene. I was talking about injustices, iniquities there when I was one of the biggest artists in that scene. When I had the power, the privilege, the prestige to do so, and I was doing it with the radio station. When the radio station was trying to make me the headliner of their stuff and was playing me all the time. I did it with the newspaper when they were putting me on the cover of the newspaper. I did it, I did that with listeners who like, I'm challenging white people to think about whiteness in a certain way when they're the majority of the people that support me. You know what I'm saying? This is to me what it looks like to have the courage of your conviction, being self-critical. That's what I respect. And I think that that's the thing that's going to be most valuable and most effective. Like, let's look at what part of the problem am I, especially if I'm in the groups or in the populations that are dominant, that are having their way right now. You know what I'm saying? That's where I can be most effective. So respectfully and appreciatively, that's what I'm doing. And I can see why if you're out here telling me telling me that it's supposed to be my job to speak on behalf of other people that I've never met, about things that I don't have a power relationship to, other than I'm saying I am a citizen of America, and America is putting these restrictions on Iran and these sanctions and these embargoes. And so those people are in poverty, are struggling with poverty partially because of what my government is doing. Before that, my government was playing games with their political and interfering with their political process. So I'm looking at what do I have? Where's my fault in this? Because that's the part that I can fix. And so I could see why that way of viewing the situation wouldn't resonate with the kind of person, or with a person who's just in the mind state and in a place where they're going to come to me and tell me that I have failed to do what they think I should do, and that they no longer support me because of that. We're not in the same place. You know what I'm saying? We're just not in the same place. And that's all right. That's fine. It's okay to be like that. I've been talking a long time. And so, just in case this ends up being an episode of the podcast, an official one posted for everybody, I'm going to end it the right way. Travelers Podcast is Travelers Podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/travelers. If you go there, you can have access to a huge community of trained, licensed online mental health therapists and professionals. If you use that link, you'll get 10% off. And then we also will get a commission that helps us do our work here at the Travelers Podcast. That's the platform that I use. And so I'm happy to share it with you. We're also brought to you by Zakat Foundation, ZAKAT. So you can do Zakat US on social media, or zakatfoundation.org online. Really great organization that does amazing work all over the world. Couldn't recommend it more. Check them out, follow them, and find a way to jump in and help the good work that they do. Special shout out to Amna Mirza, Mansour Panawala, to Aida Rashid, to Shane Atkinson, to the Caravan folks. Thank you to everybody that asked questions. We appreciate you all and love you all. To Last Word, and to Market Medina Hip Hop, and to Ant, and to everybody that helps in any kind of way with this podcast. We appreciate you. Travelers Podcast is edited by the producer and really produced by Brendan Kelly, aka BK1, and it is a production of Travelers Media. Much love. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.